Eldrazi Conscription? In this economy? More likely than you think. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another Modern video, and today Kat has asked me to play a rather interesting Auras deck. And it's built around Pearl-Ear Imperial Advisor. This is a 3/4 lifelinker that gives enchantment spells affinity for auras. So your enchantments are going to cost 1 less for each aura you control. And whenever you cast an aura that targets a modified permanent you control, in this case, something that has an aura on it, you're going to draw a card. So our goal with this deck is to draw a bunch of extra cards with Enchantress's Presence or Sithis Harvest's Hand, and eventually play an Eldrazi Conscription for a greatly discounted cost. This gives +10/+10, Trample, and Annihilator 2, and if you give a giant life-linking creature those things, you're probably going to have a good time. Now, I have tuned this deck list a little bit. I have made some changes to the mana base and very, very slightly adjusted the sideboard, but I have left the other cards in the main deck as is. And the reason for that is I understand how the parts move, but not how the ratios work without playing the deck. And what I mean by that is that this deck has some number of things that are meant to buff your creatures in combat or otherwise protect them. And then there's some things that are drawing cards. There's some things that are doing a little bit of both. This is meant to be some removal while also, giving you some relevant stats like ward and lifelink. And what I don't understand without playing the deck is how many of each thing do we need? For example, if we are building around Pearl-Ear Imperial Advisor, do I need 4 Eldrazi Conscription? Or am I going to get an engine going and then I will draw one eventually? So without playing it, it's a little hard to tell how much mana do I need versus how much interaction versus how many 1 mana things that can cantrip with these various things that draw a card when I play enchantments or auras. I have no idea without playing the deck. I can try to make some comparisons to the traditional green-white auras deck that does exist within Modern, but that's all about suiting up hexproof creatures and trying to goldfish your opponent and hope for no interaction that could kill a hexproof creature. But that's not really what we're doing here. We're playing a different, more drawn-out game. And without seeing the deck in action, it's a little hard for me to tell. There's some hotness in the sideboard, though. If we play against an artifact-based deck, Consulate Crackdown is an enchantment that will, maybe draw us some cards while exiling all artifacts our opponents control, which seems sweet. And it's actually realistic for us to just cast Overwhelming Splendor against a lot of players if their deck isn't killing us hyper quickly. We can, get Pearl-Ear Imperial Advisor into play and then make it cheap. So, meme or dream, we're going to find out. Here's Kat's Enchantress deck. And if you decide that you just need to try this one out and maybe modify it for yourself, consider buying some cards from my sponsor, TOAmagic.com. If you need your cards in a hurry, they have expedited shipping options. Got a tournament? They've got you covered. 2-day shipping. Otherwise, you can just wait a little bit longer and get free shipping. Promo code ThrabenU will also save you 5% on your order, and let them know that they should keep supporting my content. So, let's jump into a league and cast some auras. Alright, I have lands and spells, but probably no real plan here. I think I'm going to mulligan this one. How about this? This is probably going to be fine. So I just need to think about Pearl-Ear Advisor here. So turn 1, just Abundant Growth and Cantrip. Turn 2, play 1 of Sithis or Sanctum Weaver. Turn 3, Pearl-Ear, and then try to start doing things with that. The Pearl-Ear makes me want to have Rancor, but the Sithis drawing card thing, in theory, makes me want to have Sanctum Weaver for the extra mana. I'm going to get rid of Rancor and assume that I'll draw more things for this over the course of the next few turns. Not sure if that is correct, though. So because we have things like Sanctum Weaver in here that are going to scale up based on the number of enchantments I have, I am just going to play this out immediately. Utopia Sprawl is a fine draw. Urza's Saga, you've got it. And we are playing against Amulet, so I need to get this show on the road. There's some, like, mana now versus payoff later mental math that I'm doing right now. I think I would like a large amount of mana next turn. Let's Utopia Sprawl the Temple Garden, make white when I tap that, and then go Sanctum Weaver. And then next turn, hopefully I start doing cool Sithis things. I have a decent amount of mana here, so we'll see where this goes. But I think what's likely to happen is that next turn my opponent gets a second Amulet, and I just die. Or if not literally die, effectively die. My opponent has Teleria West, which used to see some play in Legacy. So let's go green-white, play Sithis, tap this for 4 white, play Pearl-Ear. You're going to go ahead and give that Totem Armor. And does it need Ethereal Armor as well immediately? Probably not. So I need to do this targeting a modified permanent if I want to draw 2 cards. Let's do that way. Name green the second time. Now I can still play Ethereal Armor and do that here. We are popping off. I have an 11/12 creature in play. It's turn 3. So mission success, but is my opponent just going to do something fundamentally broken this turn that just wins the game before I get an attack step? Likely. It is a new Urza's Saga. That's the land drop for turn, so maybe I'm not in bounce land hell quite yet. Oh shit! Oh shit, I'm untapping! Fuck yeah! So I am currently getting +1/+1 for each enchantment I control. I currently have 12 onboard damage. So let's go here. This one gives me 1 card. This one gives me 2 cards if I give up using the mana immediately. Or sorry, 3 cards. Sheltered by Ghosts is an interesting draw. Name some color. Make some green. And Sanctum Weaver. And then we'll Sanctum Weaver again. A lot of my things are now going to be cheaper because of the whole affinity for auras thing. So this Enchantress's Presence, for example, is costing 1 here. And at this point, we're kind of popping off. Let's get Sheltered by some Ghosts. Oh my god, this is so many cards. This is working. And that's the point where my opponent has conceded. We got lucky that they didn't do crazy bounce land shit. So thumbs up for that. But deck concept is cracked. I forget, I think we had 11 power in play as of the start of this turn. And I'm not saying that we would have played our deck. We would have run out of colored pips eventually, but we were fucking going wild. Oh my gosh. Okay. So, what can we work with here for Amulet? I could play On Thin Ice to remove Primeval Titan and Dryad of the Elysian Grove. Damping Sphere makes those bounce lands produce 1 mana. That sounds sick. It could run into some combo stuff on my end. And turning Primeval Titans to 1/1s with no abilities does sound kind of cool. I think I'm into that. Then there are some things like this that are very slow to answer amulets, but if my opponent goes into an Urza Saga beatdown plan, that is, I guess, a reasonable thing to do. I'm going to turn Eldrazi Conscriptions into these Overwhelming Splendors. They are slightly more expensive, but I'm not sure how much that matters. The Sheltered by Ghosts doesn't matter until it does, and then it is incredibly important. I don't think I get to trim any of those. What about Core Spirit Dancer? That might be expendable, and then I just trim 2 auras or something like that. As always, if I am sideboarding in Modern, please don't take it as gospel. I do not know what I am doing. I'm just out here doing my best. This is an awkward hand. It's very, very close to good. The Sheltered by Ghosts can remove amulets. I don't have the second land to get my first creature in play, and I really prefer my first creature to be a Sithis. I am going to get 2 draw steps, plus an Abundant Growth redraw to find the second land to start interacting with my opponent on turn 3. That seems fine. I'm just going to mulligan, though. Let's assume that Damping Sphere is good. And then I am just going to choose to believe in Overwhelming Splendor. That is an Urza Saga. And an Amulet. They have arrived. Utopia Sprawl is great. Let's go ahead and lead on that, choosing white. Saga ticks up. Oh no, hopefully we're not doing exciting things now. I don't want that to happen. Alright, so that's floating the mana, bouncing the land. Oh, there's an Azusa. That's real bad. That is 2 additional land drops each turn. That is a Vesuva, just getting a forest, and Urza Saga. Honestly, could have been worse. Like, very clearly could have been worse. Now I'm going to go ahead and Damping Sphere. I don't think there's a Surveil land in my deck. I'm just going to do a tapped Temple Garden and pass the turn. So now my opponent's bounce lands are much less good. They could just go to an Urza Saga beatdown plan, and I would have to address that separately. Or they might find some answer to Damping Sphere. Like, is there a Haywire Might? What? Boros Garrison. So that is going to create colorless mana for my opponent. Oh, the Vesuva still enters tapped, but then gets to be untapped. That can be green. My opponent could still Primeval Titan through my Damping Sphere. That's some shit. Do not want. Do not want. What an insane play versus draw difference on this Damping Sphere, though. I'm on the play and I do that. My opponent doesn't get to drop the Azusa, get 2 more land drops. Alright, there is a Slayer's Stronghold and the Mycosynth Gardens. So if my opponent can get green and red mana, they can send this Primeval Titan in this turn. The Mycosynth Gardens can filter, right? Yeah. So that filtering of mana is going to get my opponent 2 more lands with Primeval Titan, which presumably I am going to be unhappy about. I don't know if we're going into, like, double strike territory or what here. I'm not familiar enough with the current builds. My opponent has grabbed a Boseiju, which they could bounce with the Simic Growth Chamber, to then take out my Damping Sphere. Alright, and indeed it does go back to hand. Alright, they're not using the floating mana. So I am dead on board next turn. I can take a redraw. Destiny Spinner, not gonna do it here. My own Damping Sphere kind of keeps me from playing Enchantress's Presence and then trying to cantrip. I'm going to assume that my opponent handily beats me from here, especially with Boseiju just sitting around. Why did we default to being big again? That is not normal behavior for Magic Online. I'm going to assume that I have more or less boarded correctly. My hand can produce additional mana. I don't think this one is strong enough. This second hand has an On Thin Ice. That's a good starting point. I'm going to keep this and hope that it ends up being good. Opponent is going to 5. The downside of trying to keep On Thin Ice to interact with things like an Azusa or a Primeval Titan is that it's just something that does not immediately trigger a Sithis draw. On turn 2, I'm going to have 3 mana, but I might not want to necessarily play this card. I'm going to Temple Garden and Utopia Sprawl here, I guess naming white, and pass the turn. When I play this deck more, I will start getting a feeling for which one of these things that I should be playing. Ooh, that is a better thing to do with my turn. That just uses my mana more efficiently, and the Sithis itself will cantrip off of Enchantress's Presence. So hopefully next turn I play both Sanctum Weaver and Sithis, and then I have a pretty nutty turn 4. That is the current hope. Boseiju, I will absolutely use that ability. We will pick up a Temple Garden. I'm not paying life for that. Sheltered by Ghosts is fantastic. So let's go green-white Sithis. I think I just need to Shelter by Ghosts immediately. Like, as much as I would love to play Sanctum Weaver this turn, Amulet is a fucked up Magic the Gathering card, and I think I'm going to hold on Thin Ice. Opponent has a new Amulet. Womp womp for me. What the fuck? Hold on! You mulliganed to like 3 or some shit. Absolutely not. Alright, it wasn't 3, it was 5. But that's still pretty fucked up. That's 4 mana, so they've got an Explore, so they can do the bounce land thing again. Good god, they could just play a Primeval Titan this turn after I remove an Amulet. Deck's broken. So that is 6 mana. Is the final card Primeval Titan. That is a Boseiju with Ward 2, which they do pay for. I will say yes to this. I will pick up yet another Temple Garden. So my opponent has 3 amulets plus a bounce land. I do not currently have a source of card advantage. I will play out this Sanctum Weaver. I don't think I totem armor that immediately. I think I try to wait to draw a card. But we are fully at the mercy of my opponent just top decking a Primeval Titan or equivalent card. After all of those untaps, that brings my opponent to 8 total mana. It could be a green sun for a Primeval Titan. That is a Summoner's Pact. So on my own turn, I can on Thin Ice that Primeval Titan. I don't know if that thing gets to kill me this turn. They have so much mana, so they can like Slayer's Stronghold plus Boros Garrison with this first one for haste. And then if they have something that gives double strike or something afterwards, it's gross. Oh, a Teleria West. Fuck, that's multiple Primeval Titans. I'm so fucking dead. Alright, so a few clicks later, we have a transmuted Teleria West to get to Summoner's Pact, so that my opponent can pick up another Primeval Titan. Oh shit, so they can just give both of them haste. Oh no, we're gonna make another Primeval Titan. Okay, so where this is ultimately going is my opponent is going to give 3 Primeval Titans haste, I guess. At that point, that certainly kills me. I can see the writing on the wall. I'm not gonna sit here while my opponent clicks through this. GG's. Their deck is strong, but my deck is sweet. And also pretty strong. Just for lols, would we have drawn a card draw thing? Oh, I can't tell anymore. Oh well. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, which is just the best place to host your online deck lists, and I don't think it's close. I think it's wonderfully organized, and you can have a great system of folders so that you can go through, separate your decks by whatever you want. I separate mine by format. I have just a few legacy decks, and Moxfield is able to keep track of all the decks that even someone like me makes. So please consider checking them out. All right, so there's some slight awkwardness here. Razorverge Thicket is not a forest for the purposes of Utopia Sprawl. Sun Petal Grove was originally in the deck, and I replaced that with Razorverge Thicket, which is not a decision that I regret making. I think this is better, but this does not work with Utopia Sprawl specifically. This hand is very, very close to insane. I get a handful of redraws towards a land that actually is going to let me go wild with Utopia Sprawls. I think we are going to risk it a little bit here and see where this goes. Because all it takes is 1 forest, 1 plains, 1 fetch land, and I am just off to the races with Utopia Sprawl. Even another Razorverge Thicket is just perfectly fine. I get 2 draw steps plus Abundant Growth, which is why I'm not sweating making this. That should happen most of the time. It, of course, won't happen now that I have, chosen to play this way. That's how comedic timing works. Hey, never didn't have it. So on turn 2, I will probably play a Utopia Sprawl to ramp, followed by Sithis. And then turn 3 will just kind of go wild. Arena of Glory. So there is some potential hasty damage on the other side of the battlefield here. Looting. We're not playing any recently unbanned broken cards, are we? Tarfire. Tarfire as a kindred instant is growing Nethergoyf by 2. This is a hell of a clock. What is that? I do not know this card. +1/+0 and first strike. And double strike if you have Delirium. Holy hell. That's not fucking around. Oh, I'm so close to dead. This is uncomfortable. So yes. Do green. No. Okay, no, I can still take this back. So I need to do it the other way. So do green. Utopia Sprawl. Name white. Make green white. Make Sithis. Hopefully we do not need to chump block with Sithis. I am just going to accept that we are dead to any sort of lightning bolt or combat trick situation. Just that is what it is. I need to not block with this so I can start gaining some life and drawing cards. That is a 6/7. I now do need to block. Detective's Phoenix is a problem. I am literally going to die on turn 3 to an aggro deck. Fuck. Well, shit. I'm not even mad. I'm not even mad. I'm just impressed. Yeah, why do we keep doing this, Magic Online? All right, play set. Or no, 3 copies of Rest in Peace. Get in here. On Thin Ice. Get in here. That's probably what I want. Let's maybe... So I think in theory I want just a giant life-linking creature. The Totem Armor is pretty good. I think Rancor is less important. And then I think I'm just going to like trim 1 Abundant Growth. Yes. We're just going to hope my opponent's hand is not as fast as last time. I think I am holding Abundant Growth for turn 3. I think I'm just going to get tapped Temple Garden out of the way immediately. It's possible that I should just mulligan any 7 that does not have Rest in Peace for this matchup. Like, once a Rest in Peace comes down, I imagine that my opponent's deck does not function super well. Like, there's probably something like Death Shadow over there that is going to be fine with the Graveyard Shut Off. But, like, the Trespassers and the Detective's Phoenix and the Nethergoyfs all really, really care about the graveyard. Opponent is digging very, very deep by modern standards. Like, that is 4 redraws plus a Faithless Looting in this first turn cycle. That's kind of batshit insane. Multiple Detectives Phoenix, hollow ones. Ugh. On Thin Ice is great. Can I wait a turn? It's probably not 4 damage. It's probably 6 damage. I maybe don't get to wait. Oh no, it's Enchant Snowland! Fuck! JK. We are going to wisely delay playing on Thin Ice for a little while. Tactical choice. If this deck had more than 2 copies of On Thin Ice, I think you would have to just play more fetch lands over things like Razorverge Thicket to enable them. At 2 copies, I thought it was fine. It could be that I am just fully wrong. Like, assuming Detective's Phoenix happens here, like, this is a rather costly, not mistake, but deck building choice. Never didn't have it. I'm the GOAT. Basic land, snow-covered plains, On Thin Ice, exile the hollow one. The Detective's Phoenix gets to stay around. But hopefully I will do cool things with big mana. We're a few turns away from something like Eldrazi Conscription, though. Maybe that just needed to be sideboarded out completely. My opponent's deck is blisteringly fast. What is that? That is Molten Collapse. Oh, fuck. So Molten Collapse, because of the Delirium, because of the Descending here, gets to nuke my creature while also taking out On Thin Ice, meaning that my opponent can now put Detective's Phoenix on Hollow One and attack in for 8 here. I think that's just it. I think I'm just dead. I can get an Abundant Growth. Or I guess I should put that on the land that produces 1 color. I can get an Abundant Growth redraw. I can make my opponent's creatures bigger to help them kill me. But I am otherwise dead. And quickly, too. GG's. Yeah, maybe I should have just mulliganed to Rest in Peace. Alright. Opening hand has mana, but nothing really to do with that mana. I don't like this one. Whereas this is largely great. I'm going to get rid of 1 copy of Sheltered by Ghosts because it requires a creature in play to start doing its thing. But we, in theory, have turn 1 Utopia Sprawl, turn 2 Enchantress's Presence, and then hopefully we draw a creature to start doing something cool on turn 3. Sacred Foundry. And that guy. I don't miss this. I don't miss this at all. We're gonna go white here. There's some wild things that my opponent could hit with a Ragavan. I'm taking 2. Opponent gets their treasure. What's the follow-up? Going to 14 life. Static Prison, sure. That's very annoying here. So is that. Not being able to play this Enchantress's Presence next turn is a really, really big deal. Yeah, not being able to play my removal spell. Also pretty bad. That static prison was just time walk. So I am taking 5 damage. And if my opponent has a follow-up play here, I think there's a very good chance that I just never recover in terms of tempo. I have no Supreme Verdict Terminus style card that just gets to kill all of the creatures. There's the treasure. A Ranger Captain of Eos, meaning that my opponent now gets to tutor for another 1-drop. That is an Ocelot Pride, which my opponent is not playing out. I'm now taking 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I am on a 2-turn clock. I don't think I can just remove all of these creatures. This is the point where we are effectively dead, unfortunately. Losing that Utopia Sprawl was the whole game. So, Ghostly Prison is fine. On Thin Ice is fine. Rest in Peace has some text, but I don't know that I'm excited about it. My game plan is create a large lifelinker that has totem armor. And then it gets exiled. Okay, good to know. That's what's coming. Is Overwhelming Splendor good? It feels slow. So does Eldrazi Conscription. Shutting off all of my opponent's abilities is pretty good. It won't shut off the Flippajani loyalty abilities, though. I might just die to an army of 1/1s if I play Overwhelming Splendor. Let's keep Eldrazi Conscription. And I don't know, maybe I could get rid of Eldrazi Conscription and then go down on these. But they're just lifelinkers. That alone is reasonable. I could get rid of Destiny Spinner. I don't know, that's a 2/3 body that blocks. Spirit Dancer? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Hard to tell. I don't think I like this matchup for me. Here's that On Thin Ice with no snow land again. I don't think this hand is keepable anyway, but that doesn't help. Temple Garden, Utopia Sprawl, turn 2 Sithis, hope to cycle. There's really good stuff here, but sometimes I just get stuck. So we Utopia Sprawl. It looks like we're naming white here, because we do need to work towards white for that card. And then we'll see what my opponent has to say about our opening turns here. Another Ragavan. Sanctum Weaver is a very good card here. I think I'm just going to play that over Sithis. The Sanctum Weaver upside is pretty high here. I am just going to get punched in the face by Ragavan. That's just happening. Arid Mesa into Guide of Souls and Ajani. Yeah, these multiple bodies are absolutely fucking me up. This Ghostly Prison is a really big deal here. There is another land. So I can go 3 mana, play Ghostly Prison, and then have 2 mana of 1 color. Or I could play Sithis off Utopia Sprawl. Then Sithis is an enchantment for Sanctum Weaver. Have 3 mana and Ghostly Prison afterwards. Okay, that is the line. So green-white, Sithis. There's 3 white for Ghostly Prison. Hyena Umbra. I am very interested in putting that on Pearl-Ear. So let's just go ahead and draw another card like this. Yeah. Okay, cool. Static Prison, getting rid of my Ghostly Prison would be a really, really big deal here. Oh my god. Alright. I'm processing my grief here. My opponent lost 3 creatures to that. But damn, that kind of sucked for me. We will rebuild. Temple Garden, name white. And I think past turn. Then I can hopefully play one of these and Utopia Sprawl it afterwards. Although maybe I just need to play it and play Hyena Umbra immediately next turn. I could buy that. White, white, green, white. Sounds good. First Strike, Totem Armor, Lifelink. A reasonable set of words. This is worrying to me. What is this? Oh, fuck that. I mean, that's annoying. But my opponent's on 2 cards, so I guess we're going to call that not the end of the world. You may surveil. Gunking Goblin Bombardment, which makes sense. That is an Ocelot Pride. That currently doesn't matter very much. emphasis there on currently. So this is 3 mana. Play Pearl-Ear. This is 1 mana. I am thinking about cycling a Horizon Canopy. If I cycle Horizon Canopy, Razorverge Thicket turns into an untapped land. Yeah. Okay. So then I will Hyena Umbra and pass the turn. So now... Oh shit, it's not called Totem Armor anymore. It's Umbra Armor now. I forgot about that. Don't have Vigilance or anything. This does cost 1 mana. So that means that I can start chaining things together to draw cards, at least in theory. Hopefully there is not another Wrath of the Skies. Ran out of white, but that's fine. I think I'm just not going to attack. I don't want my opponent to have cats. And they clearly have the mana to pay for Ghostly Prison. I don't want to see removal on Sithis into make cats. Oh, that is a shock. That is a Seasoned Pyromancer. So that effectively serves as just a draw 2 creature for my opponent. Alright, they take out my Pearl-Ear Imperial Advisor. They have Goblin Bombardment. Yeah, I mean, this sort of thing is why I did not attack. Oh, we're just taking out Sithis, huh? Yeah. Okay, there's some strangeness regarding Static Prison right now, and this Pearl-Ear Imperial Advisor, rather. I think that's fine. I think I'm just going to go ahead and cast it. So we need to target our thing that already is modified to draw an additional card. And we do that. I can Ethereal Armor to draw a card. On Thin Ice is kind of whatever. This is just a 9/10 creature already. Yeah. So my opponent should not pay. Then I will keep the one that is modified, obviously. Ooh, no play. Ha ha ha. Well. 1 mana Enchantress's Presence. Oh man, my opponent is gonna have a bad time. I think that is already just lethal. So this is a 10/10 that cantrips. That is 19. Yeah. Okay. This Wrath of the Skies was kind of wild. That was not something I was super expecting. We recovered. My deck is sweet, but again, there is this risk that my opponent will just go faster than us, and that I can't get my cool stuff going. I think to that end, I'm just going to play some things that maybe do stuff sometimes. I think I'm just going to play 2 copies of Rest in Peace, and I'm just doing that to help keep Flage from being a thing, and it's just an aura that I can cast to draw a card with Enchantress's Presence or Sithis. It is possible that just Rancor at 1 mana is better than Rest in Peace at 2 mana. Alright, I have kept my 7, my opponent has mulliganed to 6. I have an immediate On Thin Ice to take out something like a Ragavan that my opponent plays on turn 1. Speak of the devil, and he shall appear. Ooh! This does have to be a snow basic to do my thing, so there's that Snow-Covered Plains and On Thin Ice. So we are hoping to then play Sithis into Ghostly Prison, although Sithis into Sheltered by Ghosts is also just absolutely perfectly fine. Goblin Bombardment. Sithis's 1/2 butt isn't the best at living through that. Sanctum Weaver's 1/0/2 butt. Similarly, a little fragile. I am going to go the Sanctum Weaver route here, I think. That just physically produces more mana. And I think I don't have to just optimize the number of cards I'm looking at. I think I just need to be able to deploy relevant cards. All right, junking On Thin Ice rather than Sanctum Weaver. Oh, I see. I don't like this. So now my opponent can sacrifice the cat, send a damage at my face, flip into the Planeswalker mode here, make a cat, kill Sanctum Weaver. That is very much not good for me. And this is something that helps to get through Ghostly Prison if I can deploy that. This is very bad. My 1/2 creature is now not great. So I'm going to try to high roll here and get another land drop with this draw specifically, because I think that's where we're at in terms of this game. I do high roll. I will play my creature. I will fully expect this to not make it around the table. If it does, cool. I can do some stuff with Sheltered by Ghosts. But I fully expect that this is just saving me a few points of life from an Ajani 0 ability not just going directly to my face. Fuck, there's also the Pseudo Cataclysm Ultimate here against my enchantment deck. This is a problem. Oh god, and there's a haste creature. Oh, that could have been worse, sure. But my opponent just stacking up creatures right now, like that alone is just a disaster. Because this because this 0 ability deals damage equal to the number of creatures you control to any target. So my opponent can just straight up send that at my fucking face at this point. And they're just gonna ping a couple of ping Sithis a couple of times by junking permanents. I'm gonna take 6 damage this turn. Yeah, no. I'm dead. Ghostly Prison does not save me from this hell. And an Abundant Growth off my deck. How dare you? How dare you? Yeah, it feels like if we make it out of those first couple of turns versus this deck, like we can set up and do some cool things, but a lot of times we simply aren't because this sort of stuff is going to happen. GG's. Alrighty, I have a reasonable opening hand here. Oh no, don't do this energy shit again. I've already learned that this matchup is scary. Oh, this is different. Hopefully that's fine. So, Temple Garden, Shock, Utopia Sprawl. Looks like it's probably going on white here. And pass the turn. I am sure that this is some sort of combo deck. I forget the name of the card. There's some sort of like polymorph style thing. Oh no. Alright, we're just Storm. Alright, understood. I do not have a lot of ability to interact with a Storm deck as of right now. I wonder if my play was wrong and I was just supposed to play Pearl-Ear in hopes of getting Eldrazi Conscription into play ASAP. I was immediately thinking that I need to protect this from red removal because I can't see the flip side of it. The backside of Ral does have some red removal. I am hoping that my opponent goes Ruby Medallion, Ral, pass, and then just gears up to win the following turn, and that gives me a chance to get some Sithis redraws for white auras. Fuck. That would allow me to remove Ral and or Ruby Medallion. Alright. We'll see how bad this is going to be. Oh, that is an immediate Past in Flames. Interesting. So now they can flashback stuff from their graveyard. With the Reckless Impulse there probably being the big winner. Alright, there is that Reckless Impulse. So I see lots of mana. I do not see the way to win yet. It may just be this. This has 9 loyalty already, so that can just be 8 cards, which is what my opponent is doing. And at this stage, my opponent is going to look at a very large number of cards that is probably going to result in me dying. They can loot through their hand if they end up with a bunch of stuff in hand that's not good. At this point, I'm going to go ahead and just fast forward to them putting a win condition on the stack or otherwise doing something interesting. All right, and a handful of spells later, my opponent puts a lethal grape shot onto the stack. We simply are not fast enough to beat this deck when it does their thing. We're going to have to try to stop them. Nothing I do is capable of winning on turn 3. I can do some cool things on turn 3, but I can't physically just win the game. Rest in Peace does some things versus the graveyard. Damping Sphere, great versus opposing spells. On Thin Ice is probably good enough to play, but is not very exciting. I probably need to keep Sheltered by Ghosts and On Thin Ice to attempt to address Ral and the Medallion. The lifelink here with Ethereal Armor can do some interesting things in terms of putting my opponent's win out of reach, but I think I'm going to trim like 2 of those and a couple of Rancors, maybe Destiny Spinner. I could keep one more card here. Let's just keep a card that cantrips. I don't know that my deck is hateful enough to win here. All right, I have a Damping Sphere. I only have a couple of those. I have an Abundant Growth redraw to try to hit another land, and a draw step to hit another land to Damping Sphere. I am going to keep, and I'm not happy about it. And the fact that Horizon Canopy is not a valid target for Utopia Sprawl is relevant here. So hopefully we spike a land. Fuck. Alright, Arid Mesa and pass. Okay, never didn't have it. Fantastic. So, basic? I don't need to take damage here, right? Because my stuff is just going to tap for all sorts of colors. Yeah. So I am going to go green mana that does not cost me life to Utopia Sprawl on Forest. Probably just naming green. And then I will drop the Damping Sphere. Is the Damping Sphere annoying for me? Yes. Is it more annoying for my opponent? Hopefully. We've got a response that might just be a Surveil land. Junking a Wish. Oh, that's a hard discard. All right, let's draw a way to start drawing cards. I need to capitalize on this window that my Damping Sphere is creating. All right, so regular green mana, cast Abundant Growth. That's normal price. Draw a card. I am going to have at least two things to cast. Let's do that differently. I'm going to have at least two things to cast if I draw a draw engine of some kind. So I think I'm just going to play that card here. To bring in more interaction, I did trim some bodies. So we are down a few bodies from the Game 1 deck. How desperate are we? Are we this desperate? I think we're this desperate. Goodbye. Fuck. But Razorverge Thicket is back on, so we got that going for us. Our opponent has discarded a Past in Flames. Good value for them, but not great for me. And this is a good time where, like, I can just make a comparison to something like the traditional green-white Boggles deck / Auras deck. If I am playing that deck, how much damage do I hit for my opponent for after, having that couple of turn window? It's a lot. And now I probably just die. I am going to lazily fetch here so that I can F6 the remainder of this turn. If you got it, you got it. I presume the Past in Flames is likely to mean that I die. I also can't just Sheltered by Ghosts immediately because I do not have a creature. A bunch of my removal being tied directly to creatures is a really big deal. This is not just removal for creatures like On Thin Ice is. This is also a removal for generic non-land permanents, which does matter with things like Planeswalkers and Goblin Bombardments in the format. But the downside is real. All right, there's a bunch of rituals here. I imagine that these rituals plus Past in Flames and Wish in graveyard results in me being dead. All right, Ral has flipped. Are we just going to assume that those 8 cards are enough? I think I'm going to value my own time and assume that that kills me. It's not like I have a great immediate follow-up afterwards as well. That would have been great, but without Sheltered by Ghosts being able to remove any number of these permanents, I don't think we're getting there. Okay, final round here. We have a turn 2 Enchantress's Presence, and we can hopefully start stringing together permanents off of that afterwards. We have gotten the BRB from our opponent in chat, so they're likely to lose a bit of clock here. Hopefully that doesn't matter for them. All right, my opponent is back. We have a commercial district. Junking a Kozilek's Command. Okay, so we know what we are up against. So yes, let's drop Enchantress's Presence into play, and then try to go wild next turn. I probably have a small window before my opponent starts doing broken things. There's just so many cards in their deck that are going to ramp. All right, they picked up Ugin's Labyrinth there, so they have a land that potentially taps for 2. Ooh, yes. I think we're going to do this. Utopia Sprawl, draw a card. A Core Spirit Dancer. That is going to get big very quickly. I have 3 auras. I think that's white. Oh, sorry, I need to tap that for green, leaving white. Leave white open. Maybe I spike a land? Or no, that's not how that works. So yes, I will draw a card. Temple Garden, Shock, Rancor. That'll be draw 2 more cards. Yes. So now I have this absolutely massive first striking trampling creature, which is also going to pick up lifelink next turn, and hopefully just be lethal. But my opponent has a chance to do something interactive here. They put a body in play. I can just Sheltered by Ghosts it. 3 mana, 4 mana, Sowing Myco Spawn. Kozilek's Command, exiling it. Fuck that. Fuck that. I hate that. Aha, never didn't have it. So let's start here. Core Spirit Dancer, 2 mana, Sheltered by Ghosts. This will be a draw 2. New Sheltered by Ghosts. I'll take out that Talisman. Any mana setback is helpful here. Now I guess I am just Rancoring again to draw a card. So much for me thinking my Core Spirit Dancer was safe, by the way. Oh wow, I missed out on lands off a lot of draws there. So I don't get to do anything else. Okay. Feel confident that we can discard 1 Sithis and be okay. And now, what big dumb broken thing can my opponent do? They are on 7 mana, so various bad things, TM, can happen. Damage report, Kozilek's Command, with Ward 2 being paid for. That is the 3rd Kozilek's Command. Unfortunate. Alright. Oops, all Sithis. So, 2 mana, 4 Sithis, draw a card. We will go green mana, Utopia Sprawl on the Temple Garden that I have not tapped yet. I think I now have to hold the next Sheltered by Ghosts for a creature that eventually hits play. Wow, is it yet another? Oh, it's Kozilek's Return, sure. Okay, that gets rid of a spawn. So, one probably goes on green. I would like to play a new Sithis and leave green floating. That is a land drop. It's not going to come into play untapped, though. So let's Utopia Sprawl on a land. Draw more cards. Okay. I have a lot of green cards in my hand. Let's pick green. Now I have a land that can enter untapped. So let's use that untapped land. Remain neutral on life. Lose 1, gain 1. Put an Umbra on here. And then we can discard some cards. I don't need this land. Don't need 2 Sanctum Weavers. Destiny Spinner's kind of whatever. Just assume that I draw another land. It's a Utopia Sprawl. That's my opponent's last card. There is a World Breaker coming, which can exile an enchantment or land. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to hit a mana source with Sheltered by Ghosts. So I guess let's start there. And whether or not I draw something like Ethereal Armor. Can I just do that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I cannot just do that. 7. So I need to get my one duder whose name I have forgotten. Let's try to take some redraws towards making that happen immediately. Nope. One more. Okay. Destiny Spinner. Let's do this with our floating green. Enchantress's Presence. Okay. So not happening immediately. Let's pull a land out of the deck. Just grab like a Plains. Drop an Enchantress's Presence. Draw some cards. There it is. But I'm 1 mana short. I have 2 mana for the remainder of this turn. So let's play Sanctum Weaver. And then next turn, I can play at least 1 copy of Eldrazi Conscription. Just confirm I have played a land. I have. Bunchies. 5. Please don't concede. I need this. Thicket goes, garden goes. Just get rid of a land. From there, it doesn't really matter. I'm just going to click on some cards. All right. So now we have free Eldrazi Conscription. And it's going to be fucking sweet. Yes. Now, tactically, should I actually cast this card? No. No, I should not. Is it, however, so fun that it is my only option but to cast it? Yes, that is correct. That is how this, in fact, works. We did it! Free Eldrazi Conscription. Hell yeah. So our opponent drew a bunch of interaction. They drew a bunch of copies of Kozilek's Return, but because they were using them to make spawns and exile my creatures, they weren't using them to dig towards the things that actually would kill me. I don't know this format well enough to know whether or not they were playing correctly, but it's possible that if they scryed instead, that they end up in a better position than I do over the course of the game. All right, Damping Sphere can do some things versus my opponent's mana. Overwhelming Splendor is reasonable. Some of the on-cast triggers are just going to nuke this, though, huh? Awkward. And On Thin Ice is another way to answer opposing creatures. But my opponent's kind of a control deck, so that's a thing. So what do? My creatures that live through a small Kozilek's Return are kind of nice. Sheltered by Ghosts is not overly exciting, but I think anything that interacts with my opponent's mana rocks is fine. I've boarded out Destiny Spinner because I am just frankly not playing against counter spells, and I don't think I need the 4-mana activated ability to win. Or Spirit Dancer outscales Kozilek's Return pretty quickly. I think I'm going to do Splendor. I don't know, maybe Eldrazi Conscription is better. Just blowing up 2 lands leads to a win. Rancor, Abundant Growth, question mark. All right, this has good mana acceleration of my own. I am into this hand. Opponent has mulligan to 5. I'm not going to get excited. Their deck can certainly do powerful things on few cards, but I might get a little bit of breathing room. And that is all that I have felt like I needed this league, is I just need that one more turn to get established and get things going before I do something broken. Ugin's Labyrinth. Putting an Emrakul under there, and my opponent does have a turn 1 mana rock of their own. I'm going to go ahead and start like this. Do Utopia Sprawl. Based on current hand, this is looking like green. Opponent is on 4 mana on turn 2. Or Karn. Sure, that is very scary. Does Liquid Metal Coating exist in this format? I hope not. Fuck, it does! That's bullshit. We're dead? It feels like that just blowing up my Utopia Sprawl Enchanted Lands is just GG. I need to play towards Sheltered by Ghosts on Karn. I think that means I'm ignoring On Thin Ice in the short term. Seems like yes. Fetch Temple Garden. Go to 15. Green here. Use 1 green to Utopia Sprawl here. Also naming green. We go green, or Sanctum Weaver. And then that's the turn. Notably, this is Enchantress no land you control, so I can't just play it for no reason. Yeah, this is rough. Well, that's all fine and good. Hopefully my opponent's last card does not remove this creature. Nuke Karn. I now have 3 mana. I think given board, I play this. This gives me more potential to spiral. I can attack immediately if this happens. I don't know. If I play the Pearl-Ear this turn, a lot of my stuff becomes cheaper immediately. Maybe that matters. But sometimes I don't want to cast Pearl-Ear, and I have something else to do with my mana per turn, depending on what I draw. No! God damn it. That's so bad for me. I now don't have a forest to cast a bunch of this shit on. What a disaster. This is also 2 mana. No, it's still 3 mana. Okay. So I have to go white, or Pearl-Ear and pass the turn. Rough. I was not playing around second Karn. Pearl-Ear is much, much better versus second Karn specifically. Alright. Engineered explosives. Yeah, that's pretty bad. Losing Sanctum Weaver means that I lose my mana acceleration. My opponent will lose the Talisman and the Liquid Metal Coating. And maybe if I get lucky, I kill Karn this turn. Although my opponent can go up to 6 loyalty on a Karn potentially, so I don't think that's happening. Yeah. I have affinity for auras. Just do a quick aura count real quick. Hello? Auras? Donde está? Karn to 3. That is a new talisman from my opponent. Karn's tutoring. Getting Cityscape Leveler, which costs like 8. Yeah, that costs 8. That's a little ways away. So I do get to, in theory, kill this Karn here. That's the good news. We are still playing Magic. Let's fetch. I think this is another Temple Garden. Let's go ahead and Utopia Sprawl here. Aura number 1. Honestly, Sheltered by Ghosts is not bad. I'm going to go white. So Eldrazi Temple does not produce additional mana towards this. So my opponent has 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We are a turn off from this. I want to hopefully remove a talisman to make it 2 turns off from that. But fuck off with these Karns! Fuck! I believe Ensnaring Bridge is not legal in this format. Soulless Jailer. So that is just a 0/4 blocker. Oh, this is so disappointing. My opponent in chat has said G2G, GG. I wanted to play this out. This was an interesting puzzle. Can I still draw a card? Yeah. So, on my turn, I can do white mana on Thin Ice here. Because of affinity for auras, 1 mana off the same land, nuke Talisman, attack Karn for lethal. Then my opponent has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 mana. They don't get to Cityscape Leveler. I get to play Razor Verge Thicket and draw another card with 2 more cards with Abundant Growth. I get to get deeper. I think there's a very good chance that I win this one. It gets a little weirder if the Cityscape Leveler gets into play, though. I think we legitimately would have won that one if the game went on, though. All right. So how do we feel about this Pearl-Ear Enchantress deck? Medium. I think there is a lot to like here, despite the fact that we won forward this league. The biggest thing that has to happen is that something has to happen to keep this deck from dying in the early turns to creature decks. And that might mean promoting On Thin Ice into the main deck and running more snow lands and or running more fetch lands. I don't think On Thin Ice is currently supported all that well by the mana base. I think it's fine if it is a 2 of in the sideboard, but this was a card that I was basically bringing in every single round. And while that's not always an indication that it should be in the main deck, in this case, that probably is true. Depending on how many counterspells are actually running around in Modern, I think Destiny Spinner does not necessarily need to be in the deck. Maybe you can play it in the sideboard if there's more counterspells than I think, but this was just not something that was relevant within the confines of this league. I would be much more excited about having something like main deck removal here. What about the ratios of cards? Honestly, it felt pretty good. We were able to cast this for free, or in the cases where we couldn't cast it for free, Sanctum Weaver is a very reasonable way to ramp towards that when we have as many enchantments in this deck as we do. All that being said, is what we are doing better than maxing out on Ethereal Armor and just trying to kill our opponent if we want to be doing aura-based stuff? And that's hard to say. I think this card is powerful. Making Enchantress's Presence cost a single mana is very silly, and you can do some more broken things with that. But is the juice worth the squeeze? I'm not sure that it is. I've played a couple different modern Enchantress lists, and they have all felt fine. They have all felt a little bit slow. I think if you get to play 8 Utopia Sprawl effects, this deck is totally fine and reasonable. But you don't get to do that. And as such, if you're using the early turns to set up your mana and get these things in play, and then you don't really want to be doing things against your opponent until turn 3, that's a little awkward. Also awkward is the fact that we are playing 8 lands that don't interact with what is probably the best card in our deck. Again, though, if you cut some of those Razorverge Thickets for fetch lands and additional snow lands, that problem solves itself pretty quickly. Without more matches, it is hard for me to evaluate some of these sideboard cards that I did not draw over the course of this league. Although some of them I think are very obviously good, and we just didn't get the pairings that made them look as good as they could be. So despite the negative result on the scoreboard, I'm going to give the brewing a thumbs up, but it may be that this idea doesn't work in Modern, and it finds a home in some other format. Modern is very fast right now, similar in terms of pacing to Legacy. I think there was a game where we literally died on turn 3, where we had just like, Enchantress's Presence pass. Oh, I'm dead. And that might be a sign that what we're doing isn't strong enough. All right, I think that's what I've got here. So, Kat, hopefully that gives you some ideas for tweaking this deck further. Folks, if you want to try this deck or something like it and need some cards, you know where to go. Promo code ThrabenU. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!